Still Mind Awakening, Season 1, Episode 1, The Day I Learned I Was Never Broken. Hi, friend. Welcome. Come on in. I'm really glad you're here. I've already put the kettle on, so pull up a chair. There's a place for you at this table, whether you're listening from your own kitchen, your car, your office, taking a quiet walk, or maybe you're winding down from a long day. Thank you for spending a little time with me today. My name is Esther, and this is Still Mind, the Awakening. You are not broken. You were designed. Life has a way of moving so fast, doesn't it? There's always another appointment, another responsibility, another phone call, another email, another problem to solve. Sometimes we're so busy getting through life that we forget to slow down and simply be. That's what this table is for. Around this table, we're not in a hurry. We don't have to pretend. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to impress anyone. We don't even have to agree on everything. What we do bring is honesty, curiosity, grace, and a willingness to listen. Because I believe something with all my heart. Some of the most important moments in life don't happen on a stage. They happen around a table. It's where families gather. It's where friendships grow. It's where different conversations or difficult conversations happen. It's where we laugh until we can't breathe. It's where tears quietly fall. It's where healing often begins. And it's where I hope you feel that you belong. You know, before I ever imagined starting a podcast, I imagined conversations like this, real conversations, the kind where you don't have to wear a mask, the kind where you don't have to explain why you're tired or why you've always felt a little different, or why sometimes you've wondered if anyone really sees you. Around this table, you don't have to earn your chair. You've already got one. As I was getting ready for today, I found myself looking at this empty chair beside me, and I thought, I wonder who's going to sit there today. Maybe today that chair belongs to you. If it does, welcome. You've been expected. Before we begin, I'd love for us to do something. Take a slow, deep breath. Now let it go. Sometimes that's all we need, just a moment to arrive. Now, what's on your heart today? Maybe you're carrying questions. Maybe you're carrying grief. Maybe you're celebrating something wonderful. Maybe you've spent years trying to become the person everyone else expected, and somewhere along the way, you lost sight of yourself. Or maybe you're simply curious. Whatever brought you here, I'm grateful it did, because I don't believe you're here by accident. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever looked around and felt like everyone else seemed to understand life except you? Like everyone else had been given a map and somehow you missed the day they handed them out? Or maybe your question has sounded different. Maybe it's been, why have I always felt different? Why do I work so hard just to fit in? Why do I feel unseen even when I'm surrounded by people? If you've ever asked yourself questions like those, I want you to hear this. You're not alone, and you're sitting at the right table. This podcast isn't just for people who are neurodivergent. It's for anyone who has ever felt unseen, unheard, misunderstood, overlooked, or who has been quietly wondered, where did the real me go? Maybe you're a parent trying to understand your child. Maybe you're a grandparent learning a new language of love. Maybe you're an educator, a caregiver, a spouse, a friend, or maybe you're simply someone who longs to feel understood. Wherever you find yourself today, you are welcomed here. Over the weeks ahead, we're going to have honest conversations about faith, about family, about neurodivergence, about identity, about healing, about purpose, about the mask we wear, and about what it means to come home to the person God created us to be. There will be days we laugh together. There may be days we cry together. But every week, we'll leave this table a little more awake than when we arrived. So thank you for saying yes to this journey, because today, we're not just beginning a podcast. We're beginning a conversation, and I have a feeling it's going to change both of us. Now, let me tell you why that first question. I wasn't asking questions because I was curious. I was asking them because for most of my life, I believed the problem was me. Can I tell you something? I don't remember the very first time I felt different. I just remember always feeling different. Maybe you felt that way too. Not different because you wanted to be, different because no matter how hard you tried, you never quite felt like you fit. When I was a little girl, there was a place in our house where I would go. It wasn't a beautiful room. It wasn't a place anyone else would have chosen. It was under the basement stairs. That little space became my refuge, not because I wanted to hide from life, but because for a little while it was quiet. It was one of the few places where I could simply be. I can still picture it, the cool floor beneath me, the stillness, the feeling that for just a few moments, the world wasn't asking anything of me. No one expected me to explain myself. No one expected me to fit in. No one expected me to be someone I wasn't. It was just me. Looking back now, I realized that little girl wasn't trying to escape the world. She was trying to find a place where she could breathe. Have you ever needed a place like that? Maybe it wasn't under the stairs. Maybe it was your bedroom, your grandmother's porch, a favorite tree, your car, and walk around the neighborhood. Or maybe your refuge wasn't a place at all. Maybe it was a book, music, prayer. Whatever it was the place where you felt most like yourself. As I grew older, I became very good at watching people. I watched how they talked, how they laughed, how they responded without realizing it. I was studying them, trying to understand the rules that seemed to come so naturally to everyone else. I thought, if I watch closely enough, maybe I'll finally get it. So I worked harder. I tried harder. I smiled more. I blended in as best I could. From the outside, people saw someone who was capable, someone who was successful, someone who had it together. But inside, I was carrying questions I didn't know how to ask. Questions like, why does everything seem to take so much effort? Why do I replay conversations over and over in my mind? Why do I feel exhausted after being around people? Why do I always feel like I'm one step behind everyone else? I didn't have answers, so I assumed the answers must be about me. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I was simply too much or not enough. Can I tell you what breaks my heart now? That little girl grew into a woman who spent years believing she had to earn what had already been given to her: acceptance, love, belonging, worth. Maybe you've carried that burden too. Maybe you've spent years trying to become the version of yourself you thought everyone else would accept. If that's you, I want to stop for just a moment. I'm looking you in the eye and tell you something I wish someone had told that little girl under the stairs. Around this table, you don't have to prove your worth. You're welcome just as you are. I don't know it. I didn't know it then, but God wasn't asking me to become someone else. He was patiently waiting for me to discover who He had created me to be, and that discovery would change everything. But before it changed everything, life happened. There were joys, there were disappointments, there were successes, there were seasons of heartbreak. There were moments when I questioned myself, moments when I wondered if I would ever understand why I experienced the world the way I did. Maybe you've asked questions like that too. Maybe you're asking them today. If you are, I want you to stay with me. I want you to stay with me, because what happened next is the reason this podcast exists. It's the reason I wrote Still Mine, and it's the moment I stopped asking what's wrong with me and started asking, what if I was never broken? There are moments in life that divide everything into two chapters: before and after. What I'm about to share with you became one of those moments for me. For years, I carried the same questions. Why did life feel harder for me? Why did I always feel just a little different? Why did I leave conversations replaying every word? Why was I so exhausted after simply being around people? Why did I work so hard just to feel like I belonged? I didn't know it then, but I had spent a lifetime asking the wrong question. The question I kept asking was, what's wrong with me? And when you ask the question and wrong question enough, long enough, you eventually begin believing the wrong answer. Then later in life, I discovered I was neurodivergent. People have asked me, what did that feel like? Some think it must have been devastating. It wasn't. It was freeing, because for the first time, my life made sense. Not all at once, but little by little. Pieces that had never seemed to fit began finding their place. It was as if someone handed me a map to a journey I'd already traveled, and suddenly I could understand where I'd been. But something even more important happened. I realized my diagnosis didn't change who I was. It changed how I understood who I had always been. That may sound like a small difference. It isn't. One changes your identity, the other restores it. Can I ask you something? Have you ever discovered something that made your whole life make sense? Maybe it wasn't a diagnosis. Maybe it was the end of a relationship. Maybe it was becoming a parent. Maybe it was losing someone you loved. Maybe it was a conversation or a book or a prayer. Whatever it was, you suddenly looked back and saw your life differently. Those moments are awakening, and I believe every one of us has them. As I began learning more about neurodivergence, I also began learning something about God. Not because God had changed, but because my understanding of Him had. For years, I quietly wondered why He made me this way. Then one day, I realized He didn't make a mistake. He made me. The mistake was believing I had to become someone else before I could be worthy of his love. Psalms 139 tells us, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I've read that verse many times, but one day I heard it differently. It doesn't say after you've figured everything out. It doesn't say once you become like everyone else. It simply says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Not because of what you accomplish, not because you fit in, not because you never struggle, because you are his creation. That truth changed something deep inside me. I stopped trying to become someone I thought God would love more. And I started learning to love the person he had already created. Maybe that's the awakening you've been waiting for too. I've come to believe that awakening isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've been all along. It's peeling away the label, the expectation, the fear, the pretending, until all that's left is the person God lovingly designed. And that's a journey. I'm still on it. I don't have all the answers. There's still days when I question myself, still days when I get tired, still days when I wish life felt easier. But now, those days no longer define me because I know something I didn't know before. I was never broken. Maybe today, that's the only thing you need to hear. Not that life will suddenly become easy, not that every question will be answered, but simple this: you are not broken, you were designed. And yet, there was still one question I hadn't answered. If I wasn't broken, then why did the words still mine keep finding their way into my heart? That's the story I wanted to share with you next. Why did you call your book Still Mine? That's a fair question because it isn't just a title. It isn't a catchy phrase. It isn't something I thought sounded nice on a book cover. It became a declaration. For a long time, I believed life had taken something from me. Years of trying to fit in, years of wondering, years of pretending, years of questioning myself, years of believing I was somehow less than everyone else. Maybe you've had seasons like that too. Not exactly like mine, but seasons where life slowly convinced you that pieces of you had disappeared. Your confidence, your joy, your dreams, your voice, your hope. Have you ever looked back over your life and quietly asked yourself, when did I stop being me? Not because you wanted to. Life just happened. Responsibilities happened. Heartbreak happened. Loss happened. Disappointments happened. People's words happened. And little by little, you became who you thought everyone else needed. Then one day, something changed. Not outside of me, inside of me. I began looking back over my life through different eyes. Not eyes filled with shame, not eyes filled with regret, but eyes filled with grace. And I realized something that brought me to tears. They misunderstood me, but they never owned me. They overlooked me, but they never defined me. They questioned me, but they never created me. Only God could do that. And that's when the words came. Not because I was trying to write a book, not because I was trying to start a movement, but because my heart finally found the words it had been searching for. My voice was still mine. My purpose was still mine. My faith was still mine. My dreams were still mine. My identity was still mine. not because I held onto them perfectly, but because God never let go of them. They were still mine. That's what still mine means. It isn't about holding on to the past. It's about reclaiming what was never truly lost. Because the world can blur your voice, but it cannot own it. Fear can silence you, but it cannot rewrite who God created you to be. People can misunderstand you, but they cannot cancel your purpose. You know, I think every one of us has something we believe was gone forever. Maybe for you, it was trust. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's your laughter. Maybe it's the dream you gave up years ago. Maybe it's your relationship with God. Or maybe it's simply believing that you matter. Can I tell you something? If God placed it within you, it still belongs to you. It may need healing. It may need rediscovering. It may need time, but it has not lost its value. That's why this podcast isn't called Finding Something New. It's called Still Mine, because awakening isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering what God has always known about you. So today, I'd like to ask you something, not as the host of this podcast, but as a friend sitting across the table. What have you believed was gone that maybe God is inviting you to reclaim? Don't answer too quickly. Sit with it. Pray about it. Write it down. Because I have a feeling your answer may change more than you realize. And that's why every week, before we leave the table, we're going to do something together. We're going to remind ourselves of what is still mine. Today, our time together is almost over. And I have to tell you, I'm really glad you came. And thank you for trusting me with part of your day. Thank you for pulling up a chair, and thank you for allowing me to share part of my story. But more than anything, thank you for bringing yours. Even if you never said a word, you know, when people leave my home, I never want them to leave empty-handed. Sometimes it's leftovers, sometimes it's a hug, sometimes it's simply knowing they're always welcome back. So before you leave the table today, I'd love for us to do something together. Something we're going to do every single week. I call it the Still Mind moment. Take a slow breath. Now, if you're somewhere you can safely do it, close your eyes just for a moment. Take another deep breath and let these words settle into your heart. Today, finish this sentence. Today, I discovered that blank is still mine. Maybe today you discovered your voice is still yours. Maybe your courage. Maybe your joy. Maybe your faith. Maybe your peace. Maybe your hope. Maybe your purpose. Or maybe for the very first time you discovered that you are still wonderfully you. Whatever filled that blank, don't rush past it. Write it down. Keep it in your journal. Share it in the comments if you like, or whisper it to God. Because every awakening begins with one honest sentence. Can I ask one favor? If today's conversation reminded you of someone, a friend, a family member, a coworker, someone who's quietly caring more than anyone knows, would you invite them to pull up a chair next week? Not because I want more listeners, but because I know what it feels like to think you're sitting alone, and maybe one invitation, one conversation, one Tuesday could change someone's life. As we close today, I want to leave you with something. I wish someone had told that little girl sitting under the stairs. Maybe It's something you've needed to hear too. Around this table, you don't have to prove your worth. You're welcomed, just as you are. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to hide your questions. You don't have to pretend you're okay when you're not. You don't have to carry everything alone. There will always be a chair waiting for you here. So, until next Tuesday, be gentle with yourself. Give yourself permission to breathe, to laugh, to rest, to heal, to ask questions, to grow, and most of all, to become more fully the person God has already known you to be, because you were never an accident. You were never a mistake. You were never forgotten. You are not broken. You were designed. And one day, I hope when someone asks you who you are becoming, you smile and gently answer, I'm becoming the person who was there all along. Thank you for coming to my table today. There's always a chair waiting for you. And I can't wait to see you again next Tuesday. Until then, keep awakening, keep growing, keep trusting, keep becoming, and never forget what God has placed within you is still mine. I'll see you at the table.